I think we've all kind of heard that there's a difference between hearing the spirit and the voice in my head, like the me versus the spirit, and how to sort through that. And I've recently realized that there's another problem that we deal with that I don't think I've ever heard talk about in church, which is what is inspiration or inspirational versus functional decision making in the church. So if I have a calling that I'm trying to make an assignment for. Like I need a new teacher, minister, something like that. How do I distinguish between what is the inspiration I'm receiving for that calling versus what are my rationale for why the decision is functional? So I'll give you an example and then I'll kind of sort through what I think about it. So and so needs a new ministering visitor, two brothers to go visit, and I pray about it, and then I have these names on a paper of all the brothers that are eligible or open to ministering to this brother. So then I go down the list and I start crossing off ones that I feel are not right, and then circling ones that I feel are right, and then I pray again, and I go through the process again until I've got two brothers left, and then I'm like, okay, those are the two brothers that I feel are inspired to be the ministering brothers for this family or whatever. So that's like a pretty heavily inspirational method of approach. The other approach, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, is the functional. So I just think to myself, well, who are his friends? Who are the friends of the family? Or who would do this the best? Or who's most likely to get along with them? Or who would do it the easiest? Or who's already visiting them and would be able to keep tabs on them? Or who's the most engaged and active brother that I know I can just depend on? And so you start thinking through all of these functional things, like how can I get this to work? How can I get it to be effective and efficient? And if you do that and only that, and you're not really taking into account the, whatever inspiration you might receive from the spirit, then you're basically treating these assignments as corporate assignments or logistical assignments or whatever assignments you might have anywhere else in life that wouldn't normally be categorized as requiring inspiration. And I think both of these extremes, not that either one of them seems particularly extreme, but both of these ends of the spectrum, I think, are problematic, and I think there's a balance in in the middle that is more appropriate. And the hard part is knowing where you're at and knowing what to do about it. And on my mission, I was much more on the inspirational side, like kind of just, casting my line, willy nilly, not really thinking about what I was doing, just praying, receiving inspiration, and going for it. Just having faith and just jumping in, trying to do my best to follow the Spirit. And there is a lot of merit to that. There's a lot of good things that come from that. The problem is that there is a tendency to become complacent and not put in your own effort. As we learn in scripture and church history, the Spirit loves when we do our research and we study and we put effort into the decisions we're trying to make, and then use inspiration to understand if the direction we're headed is aligned with the will of God. And so, in the case of like a ministering assignment, I feel much more comfortable doing both, where I think to myself, what is the functional decision? And then I kind of sort through pros and cons, pros and cons of all the different people and who might fit, who might not fit. And then I pray about it for confirmation. And then I tend to give myself kind of this permission to consider things that I haven't yet considered. So, for example, if I'm looking for a family that needs a ministering teacher, who needs to be that family's ministering teacher? Like, who would it benefit to be the ministering teacher visitor to that family? Or who needs a leadership experience that doesn't normally get it? Who needs a teaching experience that doesn't normally get it? Who doesn't have a lot of exposure experience at this certain thing? Who's not very good at this assignment that needs to get better or wants to get better and just hasn't had the opportunity yet? And that's where I feel like I give myself permission to receive inspiration, information, confirmation that there is something more than just the functional going on. Um, as I've been practicing doing this, I've realized that I do it a lot more in the non-religious parts of my life as well. So at work, there's a lot of functional stuff, and this has been happening to me for years now, but it's super interesting to see it come up in different ways. But so for work, I fix stuff, and something will be broken, and I'll immediately go into fix it mode. Fix it mode. How do I fix this? What do I need? Who do I need? How much time is it going to take? Who do I need to talk to? And then every once in a while, something feels like a little bit off, and I'll pause. And I've even had people around me be like, "What are you doing? Like, get back to work. We need to fix this." And I'll be like, "Hold on, something's not right." And I can feel the function side come to the middle, and the inspiration side start to catch up. Where I'm like, "Oh, we missed something. We need to go back and double check a few things or whatever." And so I think that this balance of function and inspiration is not just in church and callings, or even like it could be scripture study, it could be how you do family matters, it could be work, it could be how you deal with your neighbors, or whether or not you decide to celebrate holidays, or what kids and schooling and financial questions. There's these two sides I think have been more helpful to me than trying to tease apart whether or not the voice in my head is the spirit or whether or not it's my voice in my head. That I could learn more from in hindsight, but this functional versus inspirational is real time, where I can actively think about, okay, am I leaning functional or inspirational, and how do I incorporate both of those to really get the best result that aligns with the will of God, um, as I'm going through whatever the situation or opportunity is. So something to think about. And I've had situations where I will say, here's the right person for the calling, and then somebody else will say, nope, that's a no go. That doesn't work. And I'll think, well, that's just coming from a functional space. Like you're not giving yourself permission to hear the voice of God in this. And then I'll have it the reverse, where I'll feel like I remember one time specifically kind of blew my mind, where I needed a counselor, and I told the bishop, this is going to be my counselor. Like I received a strong impression that it's going to be him. He's going to do a great job. It's going to be amazing. He needs it. I need it. We're going to work well together. It's going to be great. So he brought him and talked to him, and he came back to me later, and he was like, yeah, he said no. And I was like, what? How does that make any sense? Like, I know that I received this prompting that he was going to be the one. I could see it in my mind. And I don't, I don't know the answer exactly why all the things like that happen. But that was an example of a time when I feel like I was leaning towards the inspirational, and I must have, missed a functional piece, or maybe he, needed the opportunity to turn down a calling or whatever. But that's a good example of just trying to balance out those two things, committing to it, learning from it. All right. Those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Comment. Bye.